right? So you got this semi-firm brush, gives you a lot of flexibility, but still a lot of control to where you can actually make thin lines when you need them, right, consistently. So you'll have to get used to them, but these are actually pretty good. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Is It Worth It, where I travel around the world and the internet trying to find supplies that will make you a better artist or just make the process that much more enjoyable. And today we're actually going to be moving forward with more watercolor markers. I was so happy with the result from the previous video about the watercolor markers, mostly because it was like, water-based markers, they're never really good. We always have a problem with that. And then we used them and they were fantastic, especially on the watercolor paper. So today we are gonna go and try out Aqua by Spectrum Noir. And these markers are normally found in Michaels. You can pick these up, and I'm actually super excited to try these because getting them from Michaels, you can get that 40% off, 50% off sometimes, a coupon, so it makes it even cheaper for you guys to use. So if these are actually any good, then it'll be a great deal for you guys to try out. So come on, let's go check them out. So every time that I actually looked at these markers, for some reason I was like, man, these are gonna be fancy. I don't know why. Maybe it was because it was Spectrum Noir, or maybe it was because when these first came out in Michaels, they were super expensive. But I don't know, we're definitely gonna try these out, and we're gonna do the paper that we've been doing all of our Is It Worth It's on, and we're gonna bring out the watercolors because it seemed, or watercolor paper, because it definitely seemed as though that was going to be the most beneficial for these watercolor brushes. So it says, for vibrant colors that blend out easily with water, enjoy the effects of watercolor with the control and convenience of a marker, which is something that I absolutely adore and think that is fantastic. So this is their floral colors. So we're gonna check that out. They have an ultra fine tip and then the brush. So this is a little bit different than the ones that we reviewed last week, but I'm gonna check these out. Okay. So with the design, so even though these are a different style of marker, they do feel plastic. Like you feel how cheap the plastic is on these. It's sturdy. Like it's really, really sturdy, but it feels like plastic on in your hand, right? And so it really is odd in that shape. And then it has, it's got two flat sides and then two angled sides here, right? So you can see that, right? It's got a nice hexagon or hexagonal shape here, which is a bit weird. So it feels odd in your hand, right? Because I don't know, it feels like if you're like me and you push down on your finger, you're gonna actually be putting a groove inside your finger solely because you have these angles on your pen. So that's just weird. Okay, then we've got this very ultra fine tip that is definitely like a bullet pen, but it is very tiny. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there with that. Does have a nice snap, so that's good. Brush tip looks actually pretty awesome, right? It's got a nice brush on it, so test it out in a minute. Snaps really nice, so that's good, but it does not it does not connect to the other side. So that's always a big fail when the marker design doesn't actually have a way to put it on. So now you're like, you got to put it off to the side and kind of remember it. And once again, if you're like me, you're drawing, then you knock it over and it flies somewhere, and then you got to go try and find it. So that's kind of crappy. But we have some very nice colors going on here, nice range. So you should be able to get a very nice range from this yellow all the way over to this red. And then the other colors have less of them in there, but this is just a nice range, so it's giving you the opportunity to actually see what it's going to look like if you were to purchase more of these markers. I do like the design where it shows you exactly that this white line right here, that's the thin one, right? Because it's got a white tip, right? So they acknowledge so that it's easy to find which one is the brush and which one is the pen. And while that's not necessarily a big deal breaker if the other ones don't have it, but this one does, and it's a nice little indicator. So, and it comes in a, you know, really, the plastic here is pretty sturdy for a case, so you could keep this and, you know, put it down. It's pretty sturdy little case, so you can hold it. But all right, let's see. Okay, we're just gonna drop these on there real quick. Let's see. Let's start with this purple. We're gonna try the thin line first. Oh, you know what? The ink on this one comes out really nice. Look at that. That's really nice. Right, so the pen itself, it's got a nice flow to it. Colors are very vibrant. Although you're not going to be doing a lot of filling in with this itty bitty marker, right? But if you do try, I'm firm. Well, it doesn't actually, I mean, it's smeared solely because it was still wet, but I mean, that didn't tear up my paper. You know, that's a lot of ink down there. It hasn't torn up my paper, so that's good. Let's try this brush. Wow, look at that. That color is awesome, right? That is such a nice, vibrant color. Such a dark black, purple. That looks great. Let's see what happens when you go over it. Okay, so when you go over it, it does get darker. All right, so you instantly get that variation in color, and it keeps happening, right? So you can do some nice effects with that, right? And it goes over really nice. But of course, let's try I'm gonna cover this place up. All right, so I put a lot of ink down, right? I mean, that's a big plus. It's not, I mean, it's got some flakes, so if you decide to like go over it, right, you can see the little flakes, but to be honest, normally at this point, you know, like I'm rubbing a lot to tear the paper up, right? So I had to do that a lot to actually tear the paper up, whereas with other water-based markers, you know, you would just go over it a couple times, right? You can just go over it and then it would tear up the paper. But this actually sits really nice on the paper, right? And so as long as you're not trying to come over it with your finger and rub it out, it doesn't tear up your paper. Like, it's not tearing up the paper. And then it comes out and you've got this nice feathered lines that you can be doing. Look at that. These are nice, even though they're awkward. Like, it's gonna take some time to get used to. These are pretty nice. Let's try this other purple. Right? Look at the vibrancy of these. And the control, look at that. Nice feathering, so from thick to thin, right? And you can get some nice thin lines if you need to. Right? That's awesome. And then you have this very nice detailed brush pen that you can use. Right? You can't go super fast, because if you see right here, right, if you go super fast, like if you're pulling your lines, the ink has some issues trying to keep up. But if you slow down your line making, right, the ink flows very nicely with it. So I mean, that's, as long as you're not trying to go too fast, you can do some really nice stuff with this, right? Even with loops, right? That's really good. This is great on just regular, you know, this is a higher quality paper, but you know, we've seen other markers just completely destroyed. So that's really good. Let's see what some of the other colors look like. But look at how, I mean, I'm still blown away by the vibrancy of these markers, right? And the brush is sturdy enough to where it doesn't feel like it's just completely bending. It's just, right? These are really good. Like, I like these. All right, let's see what we can do with this yellow. Look at that. Even comes out like nice and yellow, dries, you know, so the consistency of the brush is really nice. So you're not getting some really floppy, some weird floppy brush in one and then some real nice firm ones. It's all the same, right? So you got this semi-firm brush, gives you a lot of flexibility, but still a lot of control to where you can actually make thin lines when you need them, right, consistently. So you'll have to get used to them, but these are actually pretty good, like, as far as that goes. Try an orange, and then we're gonna definitely try, we're gonna see, oh, that's about, and the colors really match. At first I was like, oh, that's not gonna work, but the colors really do match. So, I mean, this one's really dark. Would have been nice to have a different kind of orange in here, but that one's really nice. I mean, I'm really happy with the way that these markers are actually the color that it says. Like, you don't have to worry about that. And the fact that it is a brush, you know, you can get some really nice, look at that, right? And you can go over it. That's the part that really makes me happy, is that you can go over it and it does not tear up your paper. Like, how often can we say, oh, well, I went over it a bunch of times and it didn't absolutely destroy my paper, right? So that is definitely a win for me, right? Just because you can come in and put down a nice layer. So even if you're trying to just do markers, right, you're not trying to make it watercolor or whatnot, you can actually come in and fill up the color and it'd be absolutely fine. All right, so I want to do the marker test first, or the pen test first, right? Copic. Identity pen. Micron. And pen must be dying. I think it was dying the last time we used it too. Then, as always, we're going to take yellow. Actually, we'll take a bunch of different colors. Yellow. Green. Purple. And lastly, we'll take red. Nope, nothing, no bleeding. Like, I like using these watercolor brushes because it does not whatsoever make the ink bleed, right? So that's just such a nice touch that it does not bleed. I mean, and as we know though, trying to fill in certain spots is kind of hard to make them, you know, even and stuff like that. But these, like I said, these are not tearing up the paper, and you can get in here a couple times and go over it and over and over it, and it just does not tear up the paper. So that is awesome. All right, so we're gonna try and just do a flat transition with the markers that they have here. I do believe that the orange is gonna be too dark. I think we should have went from jasmine to, yeah, this orange is definitely gonna be too dark. All right, so that's not gonna work. So let's try these reds instead. Try these 3 reds. I mean, because look at that, you know, you could just come in, just make sure it's nice and coated. they're so similar. But look at that transition, right? You can come in, that's not bad, right? And you just come in and kind of finagle that color. And the fact that you can actually do that, right? Like you can keep coming back over these and make that transition really work. Look at that, right? Okay, so that's really nice, right? So you can make it work with just the markers, but as we know, the last time we did it, we used watercolor markers with the other one, or paper with the other one, and it worked out very nicely. So we're gonna try that again with these. Right, it just comes down so nice, and it doesn't necessarily get super duper dark, right? So you can go over it, right? And it's not streaky. Look at that, so nice, right? Just whoops. And then of course, because it's watercolor paper, it sits on the top, which is a nice effect. So you could actually come in and, you know, smear that out like that, right? So you can actually use that as an effect. That's just a benefit of the paper, but look at that, you know, you can get this on here. It's not streaky, just works really well. Right, just look at that. Look at how nice that looks. Oh, let's try the smaller ones with. Still works, right? Still can give you some nice lines. So I fully appreciate these watercolor markers on watercolor paper. It's just such a nice different effect, and the colors are super vibrant, right? And you can tell that they are just waiting for some water to try and change it around, you know, so that you can play around with the movement of this ink, right? Because as you saw up here, right, it stays wet for a while, so you can just come in and just move that around. Look, I mean, you just go over it, nothing. No destroying of the paper, nice solid lines, and then you can actually come in, you know, make that darker, and then use less lines, right? And then you'll start, you know, you can start getting that transition. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna go over this a couple times, and then I'll go over that a fewer times, fewer, right? And you can almost get a nice transition with just that. So that's awesome. So we're gonna take these reds again. All right. Now we have these reds. I'll take my water brush pen. Make sure it's got some water in it. Okay, got water. Right, you can just move that. You can just move that water around, right? All right, and then of course you can just pull that out with the edge, and you just come back in. Look at how nice that it stays, like it stays on top of the paper for you, you know? I wonder, see, because I mean, look at that, right? 3 different colors, so we're gonna get rid of this. I wonder, I'm very curious to see as how long I can come back. So this is the green that we did previously, right? So let's see if we can see, you can still come back. So you could make a full-on drawing, right? Let it dry, and then still be able to come back and manipulate that color. Push it around, just get some nice little effects going on. Right, these markers are great. You know, you don't have to carry around extra marker or watercolors anymore if you don't want to. You can do nice fine details with them and then come in and just, right, you can just come in even after, right, like where we would be like, oh well, that's dry. You just come in, just right, create some kind of effect with it, right? Bring down more, look at that, right? Just get that nice watercolor effect. Right, look at that. Then you can just keep bringing ink down like that. See? Oh man, look at that. Once it starts drying, look at that transition. That's awesome. Right? That's really cool. Like I absolutely love this when these watercolors come together like this. Right? Try one more. Just these two colors right here. I mean, there's another darker purple, but let's see if we can get these together. And you can still just get that nice transition, you know, with two colors, and with the watercolor you just make it into this nice transition. Look at that. And you just get this entire water palette. That's just, you know, get this nice color palette that you can do. Bam. That's awesome, right? I love the ability to control it. Right, so there you go. All right, so we just got done reviewing the Aqua markers from Spectrum Noir, and I have to say, they're really good. They have a lot of strong qualities to them. The ink was fantastic. The brush was, you know, semi-firm, so you had a lot of flexibility, but it still was able to give you nice and fine lines when you needed it. The consistency of every single pen was fantastic, right? You didn't have to worry about the brush being different or the color being inconsistent. The back of the marker, right? The color on the marker was the color that you got. And for me, that is a huge one. Like, I don't need a color chart. I don't have to put that together because the color on the cap is the color that I'm gonna get. And that is absolutely fantastic that I can have that, right? The cons, on the other hand, is, you know, the cap doesn't stick to the end of the other side of the marker, so I always got to try and figure out where I'm going to put the cap. Little thing, but for me it's actually big because I constantly knock down the cap when I'm drawing and moving the paper around and stuff like that. The ultra fine bullet pen, not necessarily my favorite. It's cool that you can actually get those kind of details in for, you know, your bullet journaling or something like that, but it wasn't necessarily something that I cared for. But the big one that really threw me from this marker is the hexagonal shape of the marker itself. Those edges, you know, those diagonal edges really do grind into your finger, right? And you can feel it. It's not something that just kind of goes away. I'm pretty sure you'll get used to it, but if you don't have to deal with a marker pushing into your finger, then I think that's a plus. So with this having that issue where, you know, I'm constantly feeling the marker pushing into my finger, that's a big bummer. But the color itself was fantastic. The blendability was awesome. I think that it worked really well with water. The vibrancy of all those colors was absolutely fantastic. So there are a lot of pros. You have to consider the cons that go with it. But in the end, if you are looking for a watercolor brush marker, I would recommend picking these up because you can get them at Michael's. And we all know you get that 40% or that 50% off of an individual item. You can pick this up and, you know, the price drops dramatically and it's worth trying. You might actually love these, okay? So I do recommend picking these up because they are worth giving a shot, right? And I know for a fact that they have more colors, so you'll be able to expand your watercolor brush marker set if you so choose. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it or that you actually got something from it that will help you in your artistic journey. If you are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and click that notification bell so you know when I release new product. I try and release a video every single week, so definitely if you have not, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and don't hesitate to hit that like button if you actually got something from this video. Now, if you have a product that you have seen or heard about that you would like me to review, please drop it in the comments and I will make sure to get it on the list. Thank you guys so very much, and I will see you at the next video.